So I've seen this online everywhere recently, that you can live in Cambodia for $1,000 a month and live like a king. So today I'm putting that claim to the test, to show you if you can actually live here for $1,000 a month. But more importantly, what kind of life we're talking about for that kind of price tag. Alright, first up, rent. Because unless you plan on living in a hammock between two palm trees, this matters. Because you'll open Facebook Marketplace and see a modern apartment with a pool, gym, balcony, Wi-Fi and cleaner included for just $300. And your first reaction is, that's obviously a scam. But then you visit it and somehow it's real. For around $300 a month in places like Siem Reap, for example, you can genuinely get a nice apartment with aircon, Wi-Fi and maybe even a rooftop pool that nobody actually uses. Meanwhile back home, $300 gets you a parking space, at best, if you're lucky. Rent is probably the biggest reason the $1,000 life in Cambodia is even possible, because once your housing is affordable, everything else starts feeling weirdly manageable. But for this $1,000 monthly budget, I'm going to have the rent around $300, because for that price you'll get all the modern conveniences you're after, and there's definitely decent deals for that price here in Cambodia. Now on to food, because technically, you can eat incredibly cheaply. I mean, street food is stupidly cheap, and fruit smoothies are basically a financial loophole. You walk around Siem Reap thinking, this is amazing, I'm spending almost nothing. And for about 4 days, you absolutely are. Then Cambodia slowly introduces you to your new personality, aka the little treat person. You start every morning with a $1 iced coffee, then suddenly it's, I deserve a smoothie, I deserve mango sticky rice, I deserve 2 lunches because it's hot. And before you know it, your entire monthly budget has been emotionally transferred into snacks. But honestly, the food here is dangerous because it's both cheap and convenient. Back home, ordering delivery feels like a financial decision. In Cambodia, it feels like pressing a fun button. You're lying in bed thinking, I should save money. Then 14 minutes later, a guy on a motorbike appears outside your apartment, holding noodles and a fresh fruit shake, like it's a side quest reward. And the weird thing is, Western food can actually destroy your budget faster than the local food. But overall, food is one of the biggest advantages of living in Cambodia, because even on a tight budget, you can eat well. Like, really well. And for the purposes of this budget, I've set aside $200 a month, and that's without cooking anything yourself, but mostly eating local food with some Western meals in there as well. Because honestly, if you do eat like a local all the time, then you can do it for even less than that. But now and again, I'm sure you'll find yourself in an air-conditioned brunch cafe ordering avocado toast, an iced latte, smoothie bowl decorated like modern art. And then you'll be spending prices closer to what's found in the West. And the only real danger here, when it comes to food, is convincing yourself that buying iced coffee 3 times a day is basically hydration. Now on to transport, because here, your life is basically powered by tuk-tuks and optimism. And if you need to go anywhere, you can literally just use an app. And the prices are ridiculous, because trips across town cost about $1 a time. Transport is so cheap in Cambodia that it changes your entire relationship with walking. At first you think, oh, I'll walk there, then you see it's 35 degrees outside with 900% humidity, and suddenly spending $1 on a tuk-tuk feels like self-care. But traffic here is pure freestyle. There are technically rules, but they feel more like inspirational suggestions. Lanes are optional, indicators are philosophical, and crossing the street becomes a trust exercise between you and the universe. Yet somehow, people rarely seem angry. But overall, transport is super cheap, because you can get almost anywhere very cheaply, without owning a car, without paying insurance, or even experiencing the financial horror known as parking fees. So $50 a month is more than enough to cover your daily tuk-tuk rides. And if you like walking in the intense heat, you can save a little, but everyone here pretty much uses tuk-tuks. And then there's electricity, and this is where Cambodia quietly gets its revenge. Now the apartment might only cost $300, but the air conditioning meter, that starts spinning like a casino slot machine the second you turn it on. You spend your first month living confidently, then you receive an electricity bill that feels personally targeted. Suddenly you become that person that's turning the lights off, unplugging chargers, and sweating in the darkness to save 14 cents, if you're on a budget anyway. But for the purposes of this video, I've allocated $70 a month towards the electricity, which I think is about the average if you're not using the AC 24/7, that is. And on to the next utility, we're talking about water. And compare that to the electricity bill, the water bill is pretty much non-existent. Usually, it's cheap, like surprisingly cheap. And for me, I pay a fixed $5 monthly water bill for my apartment, and it seems to be similar to other places I've looked at too. But still, compared to utility bills in a lot of Western countries, the water bill here feels almost fictional. You pay it and think, that's it? Meanwhile, the electricity bill is standing nearby like a villain, waiting for its scene later on in the movie. So overall, the water bill barely affects the $1,000 monthly budget at all. The only challenge is accepting that in Cambodia, you will probably become that kind of person who showers 3 times a day and still complains about the heat. But for $5, it's nothing really to worry about. And now on to drinking water, because something that not many people will tell you about living in Cambodia, your entire existence revolves around drinking water. Because the heat here doesn't just make you thirsty, it turns hydration into a full-time job. You wake up thirsty, you shower thirsty, you walk outside for 6 seconds, guess what? You're thirsty again. And you very quickly learn an important rule. Do not drink the tap water unless you enjoy gambling with your health. So instead, everybody ends up with those giant blue water bottles in their apartment. At first you think that thing is massive, no way I finish it that quickly, but then 2 days later you're carrying another one up the stairs, like it's oxygen for a space station. But the good news is water is cheap. Overall, drinking water barely affects the $1,000 budget, financially, but psychologically, it becomes one of the main characters in your life. And for this budget, I've included what costs me every month, which is around $6 to maybe even $10, if you go through at least 2 of these big blue bottles a week, that is. And on the higher end, the $10 a month end, I'm including the delivery charge, just in case you don't have access to a shop nearby that sells them and you actually have to order them in. So $10 a month to that. Next up is the mobile data plan, and you'll need this as a backup just in case the Wi-Fi decides to cut out on you. And I pay $10 for 10 gigabytes of data a month, and I don't even think I use it all every month because most of the places I go have Wi-Fi anyway, but as for a backup and booking tuk-tuks, it's good to have. So another $10 a month onto the budget. And now on to haircuts, because for about $2 to $5 from local barber shops, you can get a decent haircut. I mean, at least in my opinion, that's an absolute steal. In Cambodia, you find a barber by simply hearing clippers buzzing somewhere nearby. And the experience is incredible because communication becomes completely optional. You sit down, the barber looks at your hair for 3 seconds, like a mechanic diagnosing engine damage. Then they immediately start cutting before you've emotionally prepared yourself. You try explaining what you want, just a little shorter on the sides. But deep down, you already know your haircut now belongs to Cambodia. Because at least for me, my barber doesn't speak any English, so I just have to point to a picture of a haircut on the wall and hope for the best. And somehow, it usually works out well. I think anyway. And honestly, for the price, haircuts are unbelievable value. $10 a month is enough to get 2, maybe even 3 haircuts a month, depending if you need an extra one to fix the previous one, that is. So yeah, for this budget, I'm saying $10 a month, because if you go to a local barber, that's more than enough. Now on to the lifestyle and fun part of the budget, which most people seem to forget about when they're budgeting, which is a mistake, because Cambodia's actually fun, like dangerously fun. Because once your basic expenses are low, you suddenly have something many adults haven't experienced in years: spare money and free time at the same time, which is a deeply irresponsible combination. You start doing things on random weekdays because you can. Tuesday afternoon, why not get a coffee, watch the sunset, go for tacos, get a massage, and take a tuk-tuk somewhere for absolutely no reason. Back home, doing one fun activity requires a financial recovery plan. In Cambodia, entire days somehow cost less than airport sandwiches. And there's always something happening. Night markets, cheap bars, live music, random events you only discover because somebody messages, "Come out, we're here," and suddenly you're on a rooftop at midnight talking to an Australian diving instructor, or a guy who does crypto, or someone who arrived in Cambodia for a 2-week holiday back in 2019 and just never left. Now obviously you can still overspend here, very easily actually. A few nights out, daily calf trips, western brunches, weekend trips away, and suddenly your cheap country budget starts behaving like a luxury lifestyle. But that's also what makes $1,000 a month life here so appealing. You're not just surviving, you can actually enjoy yourself. And that's the part that surprises people the most. So I've set aside around $250 a month here for this kind of budget, which isn't unlimited money, but you can definitely do a lot for that. And finally, the miscellaneous category. Because yes, rent is cheap, food is cheap, and transport's pretty cheap too. But miscellaneous spending in Cambodia is basically broke by 1,000 iced coffees. You start every month feeling financially responsible, then slowly the random purchases begin. $1 smoothies, $2 iced lattes, late night snacks, extra tuk-tuk rides because it's too hot to walk, random temple tickets, replacing flip-flops that exploded in the heat, and somehow buying another reusable water bottle every 2 weeks. And the dangerous part is none of it feels expensive individually. You'll spend $3 here, $4 there, and $2 somewhere else. Then suddenly your bank account looks at you like, what exactly are you doing? Cambodia also has this weird effect where convenience meets addictive. At first you're careful with the money, but then a month later you're taking tuk-tuks to places that are literally a 6-minute walk away. Because yeah, the sun's out. Then there's random emergency spending, power bank because the electricity cut out, mosquito spray, laundry, replacing headphones destroyed by the sweat, or buying an umbrella during rainy season every single time because you forgot your last umbrella somewhere. And at some point you realise your biggest monthly expense isn't rent, it's your inability to say no to the tiny comforts. So as long as you can keep a check on the smaller purchases, $45 to even $50 on average every month should cover your miscellaneous spending. So after all the coffees, tuk-tuks, gym sessions, and late night food decisions, what does the monthly budget actually look like? So here's the breakdown. For a pretty comfortable life in Cambodia, I have rent at $300, food at $250, transport at $50, electricity $70, water $5, drinking water $10, mobile data plan $10, haircuts another $10, lifestyle and fun $250, and miscellaneous at $50, and the total is roughly $1,000 a month. Because for $1,000 here, you're not surviving, you're eating out constantly, living in your own apartment, taking tuk-tuks everywhere, going to cafes nearly every day, going out some nights, and occasionally pretending you're retired at 32 years old. Meanwhile, in some countries, $1,000 barely covers the emotional damage caused by rent alone. Now obviously this budget depends on your lifestyle. If you party every night like you're escaping Interpol, you'll spend more. If you eat locally and avoid air conditioning 24/7, you could probably even live for much less. But around $1,000 a month I think is the sweet spot, where life becomes very comfortable without needing to live like a monk or a crypto millionaire. And honestly that's exactly why so many people accidentally stay in Cambodia, way longer than they planned. But now this whole $1,000 per month lifestyle also depends heavily on where you live in Cambodia. Because $1,000 in one city can feel comfortable, but in another city it can disappear faster than your motivation to walk around at midday. Now in my opinion, Siem Reap is probably the best location for this, because it somehow balances cheap rent, good cafes, solid gyms, nightlife, international food, and just enough chaos to keep life entertaining. You can genuinely live pretty well on $1,000 without constantly checking your bank account, like it personally betrayed you. Plus the vibe is very relaxed. Nobody seems in a rush, half the people are drinking iced coffee, and the other half are deciding whether they should extend their visa or not. Now Phnom Penh is different. You can absolutely survive on $1,000 there, but the city will fight back a lot harder, because Phnom Penh has a special ability to make you spend money accidentally. You leave the house intending to buy toothpaste, and yet somehow return 6 hours later after brunch, cocktails, and 3 grab rides you don't emotionally remember ordering. Everything is just more tempting there. More rooftop bars, more international restaurants, and more one quick drink situations that financially escalate. It's also a lot hotter, louder, and busier, which means your air conditioning bill alone starts behaving like a dependent family member. Then you've got smaller places like Kampot or Battambang, and honestly this is where the $1,000 lifestyle starts feeling almost suspiciously good. Cheap apartments, slower pace, less temptation to overspend, and more sunsets per capita. You'll start developing hobbies like reading books, cycling, or staring thoughtfully at rivers for no reason. Of course the trade-off is less nightlife and fewer big city conveniences. But if your goal is low stress, good food, and enough money left over to enjoy the little things, then the smaller Cambodian cities are ridiculously hard to beat. So really, the $1,000 a month life in Cambodia works best if you understand one important rule. The cheaper the city, the more your budget feels like freedom instead of survival. So, can you really live in Cambodia for $1,000 a month? And not in a sleeping on a mattress and eating instant noodles every day kind of way either, but actually, genuinely, a comfortable life. With your own apartment, daily coffees, your choice of what food to eat, tuk-tuk rides so you don't have to walk, and weekend fun. With enough left over to occasionally make terrible financial decisions at sunset rooftop bars. Now, is it luxury living? Kinda, but not really. I guess it depends on your standards, but you won't be able to live like a millionaire. But that doesn't matter too much because Cambodia has this weird ability to make life feel simpler. People spend less here, but somehow enjoy life more. And eventually you'll stop obsessing over giant apartments, expensive cars, and all the luxury brands, and start getting excited about $1 iced coffees, sunset walks, random conversations with strangers, and finding a noodle spot that becomes your place. That's why so many people come to Cambodia planning to stay just a few months. Then suddenly it's 3 years later and they're arguing passionately about which fruit shake stand is the best. I mean, Cambodia does that to people. But that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. And I do have one final installment of this series where I'll be breaking down a bit more of a luxury lifestyle that you can have for $1,500 a month. So stay tuned for that and make sure you're subscribed to see it. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.